Welcome to another episode of the Apex Perspective podcast. Today, I get to sit down with Wael Khoury, who's currently the founder and CEO at Lopez, Khoury and Associates. He's also a individual who started off his career in HR and has also started this specific company. But I want to hear from Wael himself. Can you tell me more about your background story and how it led you to start this company?
Yeah, and again, thank you so much for having me today. It's really a pleasure and honor. Honestly, I started my career in HR about 20 years ago, right? So I got into it with my master's in the U.S. at Rollins College. I was living and working in the U.S. at the time, and that's where I started my career. And then I moved to Qatar about 17 years ago and worked across organizations and multinationals, consulting firms as well. And then at some point decided, it's time to establish my own business, and that's what we started to do and dove right into it in early 2024. And I had a vision in mind, essentially
Yeah.
looking at what consulting is really about, what human
Mhm.
capital is really about, and really delivering value to the clients, looking at things very strategically,
Yeah.
looking at things from end to end from a 360 angle. I think that's really important to do. And then we've been refining that, obviously, with an SME and a startup. The first year is always a bit challenging, and you're trying
Yeah.
different things, and a lot of people know what I'm talking about, right? And we're an SME in our own
Yeah.
space. But it's been very exciting, and now we have
Mhm.
our new vision, strategy, our new website's coming out very soon as well. So very excited about the mission and really excited about the message that we've been talking to people about, right? So
Excellent.
how we view human capital, the future of work, the types of projects that we get into. So very exciting times, and the path seems very, very bright, I think, going
Yeah.
forward. So yeah.
And before we talk more about your specific company, Lopez, Khoury and Associates, did you always know you want to become an entrepreneur?
It's funny because I always felt like I wanted to be an entrepreneur ever since you were a kid, right? It's always one of somebody's dreams.
Yeah.
And when growing up, even before things, I wanted to become an architect. Actually, my father was an architect. I love that. I still appreciate architecture and design,
Mhm.
very, very much. And that maybe leads to why I'm also have another businesses that I help run and invested in called Nate Francis Design Studio, right?
Mhm.
Fantastic friend and designer in Lebanon based, right? So that's maybe my
Mhm.
affinity towards design and a pretty big appreciation for that. But in terms of what I wanted to do, I always ultimately became very much attracted to working in the human capital world,
Yeah.
very much in organizational development, leadership, talent, culture. Those are the areas that really interest me from a business point of view.
Yeah.
And really exciting to see the region and Qatar specifically
Yeah.
pay more and more attention to those areas, which are critical to organizations.
Yeah. And has any of your family members been in HR before or human capital?
None. I'm
Okay.
the first person to be in that. My
Yeah.
brother's actually an organizational psychologist, industrial
Mhm.
psychologist, so kind of similar to HR. So we tease ourselves about
Okay.
that. Cousins on that on the job front. And my youngest brother's an industrial engineer, and my wife's a clinical psychologist. I am a psychology
Okay.
background, right? So we're all similar in what we've been doing, but kind of different angles to things as well. So.
What was the deciding factor for you?
Ultimately, I was very much attracted to this part of doing the business. I like opening and
Mhm.
running my own businesses. I like helping companies evolve, and I think the people angle, the human capital angle of things,
Mhm.
is probably the most exciting and interesting to me. So obviously, there's a huge financial aspects and repercussions and things you have to take into
Yeah.
account in anything that you do from a business perspective. But I wasn't want to go into a direct finance or accounting background. I think wasn't that interesting to me directly, but I think human capital was one of the most interesting things to get into from my
For sure.
perspective.
So Lopez Khoury and Associates is a company that specializes in aligning individuals in companies, of course, with business goals, structures, and of course, having the correct company culture. So can we first talk about why you started the company? I think that from what I've seen with a lot of entrepreneurs, there's a specific gap they've seen, or if there's something that they want to change in the industry, there's a reason why. That's the reason that they start the company. So what was it for you?
I think it's multiple things, right? It's
Mhm.
one thing is to have your own company, your own business that you build and you truly believe in, and that's what we're doing here at Lopez Khoury, and the people who
Mhm.
work for us as well, right? They believe in our mission, they believe in what we want to accomplish. We believe really that all transformation really starts with people at the end of the
Mhm.
day, and it only lasts and only endures with the right strategies, the right cultures in place, the right operations. There's um, we view things from a very leading practice point of view. We believe in speaking directly to clients and saying the honest truth of how things should be working from a human capital perspective,
Hmm.
fighting for what we believe in, helping the client really drive the value from their human capital strategies, right?
Yeah.
Really making sure that everything is aligned from their strategy to their culture to leadership
Yeah.
to really give them that sense of direction, right? And that's what we
Yeah.
do, and that's how we work with companies altogether.
Yeah.
So it's really, bringing strategies together with that human connection and the cultural influence and cultural nuances that are part of the region here as well, right? So it's about bringing leading practices, but understanding that
Yeah.
you're working in the GCC, and there are a lot of things that you have to understand when you've been here for such a long time, and we do as we work in this region.
Yeah. So does Lopez Corey Associates target a very specific profile company?
We mostly work with a lot of multinationals. We work with large organizations
Yeah.
across all industries, from financial services to oil and gas, holding companies, family businesses, telco, manufacturing. So there really isn't any industry that we haven't worked with, or I don't have experience in,
Hmm.
or have worked with in the past. And we do focus more and more on SMEs. Actually, I have a soft spot for SMEs in a way to kind of help launch their own businesses and their own dreams. But
Yeah.
really, it's important to understand that SMEs, when they have their vision, they're launching and just getting off the ground. They're looking at their strategies, they're looking at their funding, etc. They really don't and shouldn't ignore the people part of the business as well, right? Start
Yeah.
structuring all aspects of the company, including human capital, correctly from the get-go. So as you
Hmm.
scale up, you're actually building things on the right footing.
Yeah.
And the people you bring on board are the ones who are actually driving the company to grow, right? So you want to make sure that
Certainly.
you are bringing those right people in.
When you first start working with these companies, what is the typical nature of the company's culture and the condition?
You talking in general, any certain clients or?
Well, I mean, if you have, is there an average conditions you see when you first start working across these companies?
Yeah, I think it varies, right? So some companies, come to you with a problem, right? And it
Yeah.
could be the problem that is actually there,
Hmm.
or when you dig it a bit deeper, you really find out that it's a bigger problem, or there are other issues that you should be addressing as well. And that's where
Yes.
we're honest with the client and tell them, listen, if you don't solve A, B, and C first, you're never going to get to D with what you came to us with, right? And many times, of course, they understand the reasoning behind that, and they'll go along, and we'll try and tackle that. Culture, again, some companies have fantastic culture, but they need an
Hmm.
outside view to come in there and kind of drive that and sustain that in the long term. Some companies come in with different transformations, and then you realize that there's a cultural issues, and you really dig in and see how can you improve that, right? Is it systemic? Is it with one department or not? So
Yeah.
culture plays a huge impact in retention and attraction of employees and candidates, leadership, and ultimately the performance of any
Mhm.
organization. So a very important thing to look at
Yeah.
in a company.
And where do you see the roots of those issues of certain company culture issues in these companies? Where's the root of them?
Look, I think it all comes down to leadership at the end of the day, right? You've
Hmm.
got your strategy, but you are the one who's setting the culture of the organization. And like you said, it's really about, walking the talk, so
Hmm.
you really have to make sure that the culture is not just written on the wall. It's a culture that is lived by, it's embedded in all the way you interact with each other, how
Hmm.
you treat your employees, how you interact and communicate with outside vendors as well, not just internally within the organization, how you hire, the process with employees, through their day-to-day operations, what
Yeah.
kind of policies you set in place. So all that is really important, and you want to make sure you're constantly reinforcing that and holding people accountable to that. But you're
Yeah.
hiring people in the first place, right? If you hire people with the right mindset and people who believe in your culture, believe in your values, then that's going to be easy to continue to build that and drive that throughout the organization.
Yeah.
So I think that's a critical thing to maintain. But if you don't have the top of the organization pushing that or living that, then
Mhm.
it's gonna, not gonna be successful across the organization. And everybody knows from studies that it has a big
Yeah.
repercussion on company performance.
And there's two things I want to say about that. The first one is having the correct character at the top of the company, right? Because if you see a superior who's not acting in accordance to a value or to the way that we're supposed to be acting, it's going to communicate that it's okay not to do so. And then number two is the point about having the right culture at scale. I think I've had the pleasure of interviewing two different people who had to do this. One was Steve Greenspan when he started scaling his company to $10 million in EBITDA, right, annual revenue. One of the key things was that when he was scaling, when he was hiring for the next phase of growth, he had to ensure that there was the right company alignment across the company, right? And then the other individual I interviewed was Niraj Satija, who also captured 20% market share with this specific strategy of having company alignment across the specific entire company. But I want to ask you, why is company alignment so important, especially at scale?
I think you've got to have alignment, right? Ultimately, you're in anything that you do, right? So if you're starting off with the overall company, companies exist for a certain purpose, right? So obviously to provide a service, sell a product, bring results to the community, to the environment that they're in as well, right? And ultimately to make revenue and profit, right? The company has a mission, and to drive that mission forward, there's many things that you require, right? It's the right leadership, the right structure, processes, culture,
Mm-hmm.
and the list is large. So what's required to really drive and make a company successful in the long term, right? Sometimes you want to
Yeah.
make sure that the company leaders are not looking at short term goals and missing out the long term effects that they require or they need to be looking at. So I think what's really important is that alignment has to be there from the top, because ideally the strategy, the culture is set from the top, and what the vision is of this organization, you want to make sure everybody's on board with that. What are we here to
Yeah.
do on every single day? All employees of the company come today, every day to the work. They know what they're supposed to be doing, and what goals are we all working towards. So that alignment and how we achieve what we achieve, not just what we're there achieving, has to be an alignment across the entire organization. That's how you make
Mhm.
sure the
Yeah.
company it's functional, it's achieving its goals, right, and making
Yes.
sure that they get to where they want to go. So,
And one of the critical points that I saw Lopez, Corey, and Associates do is to actually get this company culture to last longer, right? To last long. So, what is the key to actually making it last long within the company?
a company culture.
Yes, company culture.
Yeah, I think ultimately is the culture at some point, once it's being practiced and reinforced and led very actively and openly by management, the leaders of the organization, it just
Hmm.
becomes the way of working and how things are done, right? And it's constantly reinforced. It's actually expected from employees formally as well, right? You're not just measuring their financial targets or results that they're getting. Are they living up to
Yeah.
the ethics and the values of the organization, right? Are they living the culture of the organization? It's how things run. And culture is a very complex, a very interesting subject to get into, So
Yeah.
you're looking at, you get a feel for it in a way, and you actually see it in how things are practiced, right? And the more you do that, reinforce it, becomes inherited and continued. And people coming into that culture, you'll make sure they're attuned with this culture, or they learn that culture, and make
Hmm.
sure that they continuously reinforce that as they progress with the organization. That's something really important to look at.
I love it. So you also have another company that, or not company, but rather a community that you had founded, which was quite interesting. It was GCC, I believe, and the Leadership Center. Can you tell me more about that community?
Yeah, so about last year, probably right now, so it's about a year old. It's which is amazing to see, because it's in about a year we've grown to over 1,000 members essentially. So I established the GCC startup as actually the Qatar HR Leadership Center, right, and it became the
Hmm.
GCC HR Leadership Center because there was a big demand and we've attracted people from around the region. Essentially, it's a community of HR professionals
Hmm.
and leaders across other industries and professions as well, not just HR professionals. And we talk about and discuss issues of human capital, leadership, culture, change, transformation. And it's a forum to discuss ideas, exchange resources, and it's a fantastic thing. It's grown. We have almost 100 members from the UAE. We have a huge number of members in Saudi. On LinkedIn, we have the group, and of course, we got a WhatsApp group going. We are also big supporters and sponsors and thought leaders for the HR forum that happens in Qatar.
Hmm.
We've had the second one already, the big HR conference in Qatar, which we're happy to contribute to and be part of. And the community continues to grow and sharpen its mission as we progressed, right? And being more of a think tank, if we win, or produce a lot of thought leadership on where human capital should be. What is its role
Hmm.
in the region? How's it evolving? And how do we drive the mission of human capital in
Yeah.
Qatar and the region? So that's something big that we do. So that's a great community. The
Excellent.
other one I just became a head of is
Yes.
Transform. So Transform.us is a US based, but global community that is focused also on leadership and transformation, the future of work. We've got about 10,000 members around the world, and I lead the Doha chapter, and we're building that very quickly. Again, attracting leaders across Qatar, from human capital or non-HR backgrounds, to really drive forward the agenda of what HR really is about, employee experience, culture, transformation. So we're bringing great thought leaders from outside the world and the knowledge from outside the world, outside
Mhm.
Qatar, sorry, and then bringing that into Qatar and merging that with the local communities as well. So great to drive the mission and the
Excellent.
vision of human capital.
Excellent. And one last commentary I wanted to say regarding specifically what Lopez Khoury and Associates does is the hiring process, right? You said that they have to be, the individuals who are hired have to be in alignment of the vision and actually truly believe in it. And one of the things I wanted to say is if you hire people who are aligned in the vision and truly believe in it, you're getting individuals who are not just going to do the bare minimum, but are going to be willing to sweat and have shed blood and shed tears
Yeah,
to actually make it happen. That's a major difference, right? Because I
yeah,
think if you actually know why you're doing something and you know what you're doing it for, there's a different level of sacrifice you can give to make it happen. And actually, this is a topic
yeah,
I did a TED Talk on, which is my poster over there, about knowing why you're doing what you're doing. And I think that will permit you to actually do a lot more. So I really love that point. I think that it's actually integral to have the consistency in people in a company. So I love that point of view. So let's go ahead and transition this part of the conversation to more about you, Well. And the first question I had for you is, what is something about your life that you wish more people knew about?
Ooh, I don't know if there's anything that I wish people knew more about.
Okay,
I like to believe at least that I live my life the way I really am.
sure.
I try to be as open and as honest and as this is the real me, right? In
Yeah.
public, at home, wherever I am, I think right, I try and and do that as much as possible. I do work very hard. I do work very hard for what I believe in, right? And one of those things professionally is this company, the communities that we're building together, that I want everybody to benefit from, right? So this is what I like to look at is not just building a firm ourselves, right? We want to be seen, and we are, I believe, in what has been happening over the very short time since we've been around, is really being, a thought leader, somebody helping to transform and bring people together in the areas of human capital, leadership, development, and culture,
Yeah.
to drive this conversation forward. So that's kind of the legacy you want to build for yourself, which we're happy about. Look, outside of that, yes, I work a lot, but
Hmm.
I've got 5 kids, love my family and kids to death.
Yeah.
I'm a big foodie, so love food, love travel.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a nostalgic collector, so I collect a lot of nostalgic items and
Hmm.
things like that.
Cool.
But that's kind of me on the side as well, if you wanna say.
Well, who is the 20-year-old version of you? Can you describe that person?
Sorry.
Can you describe the 20-year-old version of yourself?
Oh my God, a 20-year-old version of myself. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think so. If I was 20, I was still in college, right? So
Yeah.
I was doing my bachelor's degree at the American University of Beirut, psychology background. I was actually pre-med, so I enrolled in psychology. I did
Yeah.
2 years of with 2 years of studying of biology and chemistry and uh, things like that, right? I totally switched out of pre-med.
Hmm.
Um, and again, I think when looking back, um, I think I always dreamt big,
Hmm.
right? So I think even back then, even though you weren't sure exactly what it is, what you wanted to be, it could have been, you're going to become an architect, you're going into medicine, what you were going to do. I don't think I would have seen myself maybe at this age in doing what I'm doing in a general sense, but maybe
Hmm.
not in HR, maybe not in Qatar. Who knows where life takes you, right? But I think that's what I would kind of flash back to, I guess.
Hmm.
I hope I
So
answered
if
your
you,
question. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, even though you're not fully aware of what you were doing, do you think you share the same principles of that person at 20?
I think so. I think so, right? I
Mhm.
think, yeah, I always believe you have to work hard for what you want, always dream of what you want to do,
Yeah.
go for it, have the courage to do what you want to do.
Hmm.
And yeah, dream big. And I think that's the more you do that and you go into it.
Yeah.
One thing is I ask myself, should I have done this sooner or not? It
Mm.
came at the right time. So there's no
Yeah.
regrets whatsoever of starting your own business at this time.
Yeah.
And then very happy with the way life has progressed.
Love it.
So yeah, that's been fantastic.
And if you had 3 hours to yourself on the weekend and you could not do anything related to work, what are you doing?
That is an impossibility. I mean, I think, right? My weekends are a bit nuts. There's absolutely no rest.
Let's
Five kids.
imagine. There's just
Let's
so many.
imagine I
Yeah,
had three
yeah,
hours to myself. Man.
yeah.
Um, I love working in the garden. I always loved
Okay.
gardening, so like I do that in our backyard here in Qatar all the time when the weather permits. Of course, some months of the year.
No.
So I love doing that. I love watching my movies, and I do honestly love spending some time with the kids as well, right?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
doing that as time flies. So I got 5 kids. My youngest is 6. My eldest is 17, going to college. Next year, time flew by. We came here; she was 5 months old. So it's one of those where spend that time with your family, spend your
mhm,
your, your personal time. Well, that's just as important as your career, just as important as whatever you're doing,
yeah,
and get time back, right?
yeah.
So um, every minute counts.
Excellent. So what I'll do now is share a quick perspective regarding fitness and health, and from there we can move on to your next year plans and conclude the podcast from there. The perspective I want to share to you regarding fitness and health is essentially to challenge those requirements of making a physical transformation.
Mm,
Now, the primary belief in fitness and health is that in order to make a physical transformation, there's a requirement to be driving to a gym or to a location, and that pretty much limits a lot of individuals from being able to adhere to strategy, especially the executives and entrepreneurs watching the
mm,
podcast to this day. So what is really required is to challenge those requirements. What's actually required to make a physical transformation? When you actually understand that, when you do the research, you'll find that it's a negative energy balance. You have the right amount of movement and the right amount of calorie intake, and you'll be making the right transformation. But out of
yeah,
these two, what takes the time? What takes all of our time that makes it so hard? It's a movement. So how
yeah,
can we do the movement in the most time efficient way possible? Leveraging something that's location independent as opposed to
mm,
location dependent is actually the key, right? And
mm,
not just any regular location independent situation like push-ups and such. It's not something you can do at the airport. Leveraging something like step count is something you can do while you're taking a phone call, while you're watching a podcast like this, or literally wherever you are in the world, as long as there's ground underneath you, which is probably 99% of the case, right? So that's the situation, is actually understanding the requirements and identifying that you can still do the movement, but it has to be location independent, and you should be able to multitask while doing so. And if you
mm,
could take a phone call, a business call, while doing the very thing that's responsible for your physical transformation, the barriers are essentially zero at that point, right? So that's the main thing I wanted to provide in terms of perspective, is that you can actually achieve specific goals you have, but you have to understand the requirements, right? And of course, if you just do 10,000 steps, you're not going to lose any weight. You have to have the correct calorie intake. The key is just to have that right combination, right? And this is actually what I personally use to lose over 70 pounds and actually keep it off myself. So hopefully that was a valuable perspective and gives an actual understanding of what's possible if you challenge those requirements and actually adhere to it. So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude the fitness conversation and move on to Wael's next year plans. Let's go ahead
happy
and
to.
talk about,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I think, look, for me, it's a very exciting time for us. A lot of the first year was a bit of trial and error, where you want to go, and kind of looking at different things. You take every project or request that comes towards you, but you really kind of post that, you really kind of we've been focusing on, no, what are we really about here, right? We
Mhm.
want to build really transformation that stays. We build something that lasts. Our focus is very much on really making HR the highest value asset in the organization, really helping organizations work on their strategy, their culture, leadership, how important that is in an organization. And that's what we're really about, right? We want to maintain this very human contact with our clients, right? So we're that, which something that that's very important to us, and we're really grounded. We're here on the ground. We know the culture. We know the circumstances of the businesses, and that's where we're paying attention to. And we like clients who have that right mentality and want to succeed from that perspective. And we're happy to help them with. From our side, lots of big plans are happening. I think, obviously, on continuing to develop Transform as an international community, and building that in Qatar. On the GCC and Leadership Center, we are definitely kind of focusing that a bit on its mission and vision and the services that it provides to the community. So that's going to continue to grow. So watch that over the next few months as well. We're going to be expanding our services more in terms of partnerships that we do with organizations, services that we provide to the region and to industry specific, let's say, services. So a lot of interesting things happening very soon. So just you're gonna have to stay tuned and
Yeah.
watch our news as we progress.
I think the website is still in development, but how can people learn more about Lopez Khoury and Associates and yourself?
Yeah, look, so the website's up there. So with the initial
Okay.
website we put up there, so lopezkhoury.com. But we are working on a new website next few months. So
Okay.
once that is done, obviously we'll announce that and people can go there and see what we're all about. But the current website is definitely out there already. We're very much visible on LinkedIn, myself and the
Mm-hmm.
company. So I do post a lot of information and my thoughts, at least, on LinkedIn and the company activities and what we do. That's where we would find most of it. And hey, if you're the right person, you're interested in joining Transform or joining the GCC HR Leadership Center on LinkedIn or the WhatsApp groups, then please reach out to us, and then happy to have you there and be part of the community that drives human capital
Yeah.
forward, right? Especially in the region.
Well, it's a pleasure having the podcast. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, Ariane. Really pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely. This is Aryan Mohindra and Wael Khoury. Thank you for listening.